Hello everyone, Kami here, and yeah, I figured I should address this now. If you don't know, I have another channel that I review media on, and I consider that to be my main account. And something I've expressed on that channel is that I have no desire to cover Hazbin Hotel or Helluva, and I wanted to elaborate why in a full-length video. I'm gonna have the heavy shit be very clearly divided from the less heavy shit, just so you know when we're getting into bad person versus bad show. First things first, and the least severe of all these reasons, is that these shows have been covered to death by pretty much every other reviewer on the planet, and at this point in the game, I'd have virtually nothing unique to add to the conversation at this point other than my own opinion. Of course, this is always a problem when covering current media, and is only emphasized when the media is as big as Hazbin Hotel is. The reason I say this is because Hazbin Hotel has been put under major criticism since it started, so unlike some smaller things like Wastelandia, pretty much every single aspect of this show has been put under the microscope and gotten major analysis on the whys and hows of its perceived quality, which means I've got nothing new I could possibly say about any of it, which turns me away from reviewing it in the first place. Oh, and just so we're clear, this all also applies to Helluva as well. Next up to bat is the fan base of both shows, and not to say they're like this as of right now, because I have no clue, but a fair amount of the time I've seen them interact with anyone reviewing the show. It's always been a form of them essentially covering their ears and ignoring what you have to say, and sometimes even attacking you for daring to criticize the show that they like. Also, the people who hate the show also fall into the same boat as the fans, where they'll get mad at you for implying that any aspect of the show is anything above terrible, which is another force that drove me away from reviewing it 6 months ago. Alright, I'm gonna get into more serious stuff here, so if you don't want to hear talks about heavy topics, I'd recommend just skipping the rest of this video. With that being said, I'm gonna start the heavy section off with the treatment of Valentino. It's always been super weird to me looking from the outside, because Valentino has always been treated like he could get some sort of redemption. Like he's never treated in the same vein as the villains of the seasons are, even though he's very obviously just as bad as they are. Also, I don't need to do a deep dive on why that is, and if you don't see it, that's completely a you problem. Getting into some real life stuff here, Vivziepop also allegedly paid some animators at Spindle Horse very little to help finish complex shots under the false promise that the shots would not be that. She has also misgendered trans people, in particular trans men, because of the stupidest reason of all time, which is the "I don't get it, I hate men, so I don't understand why you'd even want to be one in the first place" reason. Which, just so we're clear here, isn't any sort of activism type movement, it's just being a dickhead. Also, she let a known creep be influential to one of her characters' backstories, which is, yeah, that's something. Also, casually laughing at someone who is not black saying the N-word and not bothering to even be serious with them is fucking stupid. And if you don't understand why a non-black person saying the N-word is bad, go and read up on black history, because clearly you weren't taught it enough in school. And Brandon Rogers doing blackface for who knows how long to record a 3-minute skit is just as bad, if not worse, for very obvious reasons. Oh, and don't give me that "it was popular at the time" excuse either, because there was more than enough history for Brandon to have known why doing that shit was a bad idea in the first place. It was bad by the time this skit was made, and the reason I know that is because of all of the media from the early 1900s that was completely banned that also featured blackface. It's honestly a completely unforgivable crime, and I'm confident that Brandon knew that when he did it, and yet he chose to do it anyways. Worth noting that the racism in the skit itself is not light either, as it is on full blast with that shit and not funny in the slightest. There's a lot more I could mention about Vivziepop, but quite honestly, I think you get the point now. Vivziepop is an awful person that I don't support in the slightest and never plan to support in the future. You might argue I could pirate both shows and review them that way, but any coverage of the shows whatsoever is still driving internet traffic back to her and money into her pockets, and that's something I would rather not support at all. With all that being said, that's all for this video. Bye.